Hello, and welcome to another exciting edition of the Utopia Warcast. Again, Utopia News brings you Age 93. Just released recently today the changes from Muga, final changes. Everyone's probably had a lot of time. Actually, it was yesterday. Had a lot of time to check them out now. We were hoping to do this podcast a bit sooner, but the game was delayed a little bit due to some last minute things. But you know what? It's probably for the best as everyone seems to be struggling trying to figure out what's a good combo. So anyway, let's jump right into this. I've got my guest here, Persian Cat, as well as Phoenix off to the side here. He's just going to be putting some text chat comments in there, and we're going to read off of what he's got here. We were hoping Smiles could make it as well. It looks like he's going to join shortly, probably in about 15 or 20 minutes. So hopefully we can get this, get some feedback from him before the podcast ends. So let's see if I can get decent green screens configuration up here, because right now it looks like, okay, we got Google Meets in the background, the foreground, and everything in the background. I'm not too sure. I don't really have anything I necessarily want to show specifically on the like from the website anyway, because I mean most of the game data is not available yet. Um, but at the very least, we can look at the changes with the information that I have here. All right, there we go. So I got that open. Let's see, I want to turn on closed caption mode as well so that some people could maybe read that. There we go. All right, perfect. All right, let's get this show on the road. So, changes. I mean, this is what everybody's waiting for when the age ends. Um, it's definitely something that people, I've seen comments recently, people saying that they would like some more time, possibly for changes to be done sooner, before the previous age ends. But I mean, in that lies some complications as well because a lot of these players are actually playing the game as well. Um, so they're trying to wrap their age up, but a lot of them are in those top tier kingdoms. So it's a lot of work for them at the end of age. And to think about changes when, your crowning age or, a very, very big age for you as it is generally for them, age over age, is coming to an end. You're not quite thinking about, what we're going to do for the next age yet, let alone when you're the one that has to be one of the deciding factors in that. How tough was that for you last age, Persian? Is there, I mean, I know you worked for like weeks before to even get to changes that we could post. Um, can you share some insight on how that process
Well,
works
so
at
last
Phoenix?
stage I spent a few weeks prior to the middle of the age end. Sorry, kind of lagging a little bit. Yeah, last stage we spent a couple of weeks prior to the age end to really come up with ideas, and then at least another week to balance before we even were able to really go to David and say, okay, how much of these really can't be incorporated, and how much can we actually get in? And there was the feedback and the working back and forth in the meantime, but there's always that. The struggle of, okay, what's feasible to be put in, what's going to be balanced, and what's going to be fun. And while we try and get them out as quickly as they can, sometimes, yeah, things get closer and closer to the age end. Hopefully next stage we'll try and get them out a little bit sooner. I'll definitely try and push for it myself.
Awesome, yeah, because I mean, I know that's something that the mid-tier kingdoms were talking about, especially in the Muga chat, and then there was kind of mentioned a little bit in the last podcast that we had, where we had more of the leaders of Utopia on there. I mean, I think that would definitely help some of the leaders. I mean, my whole thought behind that is, the more you talk about it, the more you think about it, the more room there is for indecision. I mean, sure, you could say, yeah, I mean, look at this, look at all these factors, look at all these angles, and I mean, maybe you take on something that looks, maybe too good to be true, or maybe you think it looks better than it actually is, and only to find out later that maybe after the first two wars or three wars, you're feeling like you want to do a reset. Um, I think there is some benefit to having so little time to decide, but I mean, people like SAP's FFW, I mean, they have a pretty solid understanding of the game, so it doesn't take them very long to figure out, what's going to be a winning combination, what's going to be hard to take down. I mean, you see them always talking about value, and reward and things like that. Or, it's those are things that are really important in his book. And I mean, it shows he's got some method to that strategy because I mean, look at this age 4-4 just crowned, this age passed 4 crowns because of some things that happened. It's going to be really easy to make the crowns this year for that war.
I'm either lagging really bad or you just completely cut out.
Yeah, you know what? I'm trying to figure out exactly what's going on here. I mean, it looks like everything's going okay. Let me just check the YouTube feed. Maybe it's just a lag thing on your side. I mean, you could always try rejoining. Is it just the voice or the text as well?
The text is cutting out for you too, but I'll just try and deal with it. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, like you could definitely try to rejoin the conversation. Apparently, there's
Uh,
bad lag on the voice as well. Phoenix is saying. So I mean, that could be part of it. I wonder what's causing the issue right now. I am trying to use this on an extension rather than on the browser. I wonder if that's causing some delays with that. All right, we'll see how it goes for now, and if it gets unbearable. I mean, it's hard to say what people on the YouTube side are seeing. Phoenix, if you're listening there, if you want to just jump over to the YouTube side and take a look to see what that sounds like over there, maybe um, that would be helpful since you're not connected to the sound on this end. But either way, I'm recording this, so hopefully it doesn't lag too much. Everything looks relatively okay on my side, so no lag on YouTube, just in here. Interesting. So it's definitely got something to do with Google Meets. Um, we'll see what we can do. I'll try to take a bit of a longer pause just so you have a bit more time to respond. All right. So, what do you think about the mechanical changes this age person? Was there significant changes, um, from what you had done before? Like, did they really do too much? I mean, I threw it up on the screen here.
yeah, so I think just in general, the step is a nice step from where we were last stage. Last stage had a lot of things that were somewhat more imbalanced and some things that were definitely complicated. Adding, just a building and you only get one negative definitely allows you to balance a little bit more and get things that are in a little bit more healthy state, I would say. As far as the two other mechanics, the cheaper runes, which we have yet to see the exact cost, and learns in war runes, I'm kind of a fan of because that'll be fun to make magic a little bit viable early. Learns in war, I'm not so much a fan of, but we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, and I mean that's interesting, especially since it seems like they kind of nerfed science a little bit. I mean, they definitely made it look like it's a little bit going to be harder to attain. Um, and it's the universities, libraries all had their effects lowered just enough. I mean, I don't think it's going to impact it that greatly, but we're definitely not going to see any 500 net worth per acre humans, likely by the end of the age. I mean, it's possible still, but it'd be quite a feat to get there. I mean, let's look at some of the other things that we got here. I mean, we got races, primary race pick determines the base military units. I mean, that's an important part. I saw some people asking about that in Muga as well. And they get the racial building bonus. Spell lists are combined. Elites units values are determined by the primary pick plus the secondary pick adjustment. Secondary pick does not grant the racial building bonus. So that's really important. I am probably going to be posting like a little thing like I did the last time, that kind of like, drop down thing spreadsheet that lets you just pick whatever you want, and it's going to just show you, what the choice would actually look like. But I mean, they have these examples here as well. Avian part undead. You see the building effects here, um, as well as all the other information that you need to see here. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. Spells are combined, penalties, no access to warhorse or stable. I mean, that's again the first primary unit. So that's probably the most important part about these combinations now, is that you're 100% sure about the first pick, because I've seen some people say, get a little bit confused saying, oh, well, if you do this, you're going to benefit from that. It's like, well, only if you do it this way. You know, if you put an undead avian, it's going to look slightly different than, this avian part undead that we're looking at right now. Um, this was a point of contention here, this half-blood and pure blood thing, kind of when it first came out. People were like, well, why do you need that? And I mean, Town Watch has some good value to it, but um, is it as good as 50% birth rate? I suppose, but that 50% birth rate was used quite effectively this past age, I believe. We got exploration in buildings. Again, as I said, only libraries and universities have been nerfed there. Science, the resilience scaling will be the same as tactic strategy. I mean, that's still pretty decent. You're going to get a decent amount of resilience science with very little book investment there. As if net worth values weren't already uh, complicated enough to look up, we've got this amazing explanation here, which I'm sure plenty of people will be asking about at some point, even though it's very clear and very in front of us here. Sometimes people get jumbled up by the math. And this again, Persian was talking about here. Learn attack now capture science books in war with reduced gains of 50%. I mean, if you're really trying to punish your enemy, um, maybe you just want to stick it to them and take some of those books later in the age or mid age or something. Maybe their TMs are hittable, and you really want to show off or something. I'm not too sure how effective a learn attack would be at sealing the deal. It's definitely saying, we don't need your land, so just give us your book. So I mean that says something as well. Learn attack gains just adjusted allocated books gains decrease 20%, while gains from unallocated books roughly doubled. So kind of back to what we were looking at before. The unallocated books you're getting more of, whereas the allocated books you're getting less of. Military
Yeah, which
training time bonus now includes thieves. Woohoo! I think a
yeah,
lot of
which
people.
means with the learns in war, you're definitely going to want to be actively assigning science in war. Oftentimes, I kind of forget to do that because I'm actively warring. But if I'm going to get learned and I let 2 days worth of science build up, and I'm near zero defense, that's all going to disappear really quickly.
Let's see, nerfing science but adding learns in war will make the dynamic of wars a little bit more challenging, and it may be a good change. Some good input from Phoenix there. That's kind of what I think they're hoping to see here. And I always thought it was kind of strange that they did have like an amnesia sort of effect when you did learn in war. I personally didn't really see that much used very much. Then again, it was used most often in the later wars by the top tier kingdoms who were really sticking it to TM squads. And I mean, you really have to be in that position to see those wars. Otherwise, you're just on the sidelines most ages. So I mean, definitely, here's some promotion here for some of the more venerated kingdoms that they're currently looking for members. A lot of them are willing to accept newbies or people who are brand new to the game or very little understanding, such as Atlas. Phoenix here has already said that they're looking for a couple players that they want to teach. So they're more than happy to show you how to, deal with the game at the top and what to expect and what moves to make. Um, it's a great kingdom to be a part of, and they're not the only one. I mean, check the Muga recruiting channel. There's plenty of good kingdoms looking for players right now. So new players definitely a good place to start, especially if it's going to mean between going to one of them or some random ghetto that just does whatever, or you end up in ghetto vets and they raise kill you and it turns you off the game or something like that. There's options out there. So make sure you check out the recruiting channel because a lot of people are willing to teach you just about everything you want to know about the game. All right, let's take a look here. Spells. The rune cost formula. Oh, sorry, rune relations. Unfriendly relations threshold increase from 10 to 15 points. So you get a few extra attacks there, I guess, before you get into unfriendly. So before it was about 3 would take you to 9, and then you get one more, but that would actually bring you to unfriendly. So it'd be like 3 attacks and an ambush or something like that. But you could use ops to get up there as well. So I mean, now you're kind of looking at about you get 5 attacks, um, and you're pretty much so, yeah, you get 5 attacks and then you're in unfriendly. So that kind of changes a little bit, in hostile or to get unfriendly, you need to attack a little bit more. I think, the biggest issue with this one is maybe we're going to see a bit more bottom feeding because of this. Those kingdoms are not going to have to worry about ops coming their way, so they're going to get a few extra attacks in. I don't think the nerfs to science are going to stop learners at all. I mean, inactives are going to be inactives, and it just means like if anything, this is good news for kingdoms like Ghetto Vets because they can avoid relations and get extra hits in. So it should be an interesting age, I think, for that. Spells, rune cost formula has been adjusted, as Persian was mentioning earlier. I believe I saw someone had already worked it out on one of the other servers that I'm on, so good on them. And I don't think they were one of the top tier kingdoms. So again, we got some interesting new skill coming into the game that everyone should be aware of. I mean, the more the player base expands, I think, we're going to see a lot more interesting things. So hopefully that happens sooner than later. So maybe we can get some fresh blood into the game. Not that there isn't some already. Um, let's see. Phoenix says he's glad that they removed the land and honor choice for end of war. Yeah, I mean, some people were saying it would be nice if the monarch could have some choice there, or maybe if there's some other options or some variety to that still. When you have a second there, Phoenix, maybe type out some reasons as to why you're happy that it was removed. And in the meantime, we'll keep looking at the spells list. Um, oh, yes, right, of course. So bottom feed longer. Yeah, that's definitely something. I mean, we don't really want. Um, maybe I can move. I wonder if I can move the chat down a little bit so we can kind of see what you're typing there as well. I should be able to without blocking too much. You can kind of see it there. All right. Okay, you know what? That's kind of blocking it a little bit too much. All right. Yeah, so let's see. Aggression adjusted bonus penalty to +2, -2. Um, oh, hold on a second, Persian. And people, 1 second. Wow, gotta love having a family. All right. Last minute emergencies. Okay. So yeah, let's see. Aggression, +2, -2. That was just +1 before, I think. Amnesia difficulty and rune costs increase significantly, so definitely make it harder to cast Amnesia. Um, so I guess it'll be a little bit harder to deal with those tougher provinces at the end of the war, like end of the age in the later wars, and especially with learn attacks just taking books now. I guess they're looking to make it a little bit easier or less easy, easier on, those bigger provinces, but less easier on people trying to take them down. So I guess it's kind of in bringing back some kind of cow mentality in the sense that those provinces are a little bit more safe at the top now compared to this past age. Anonymity availability changed to all. I mean, there's times to use that, but to be honest, I don't really use that very often. Um, It's just one of those spells that you either have it as part of your strategy or someone's using it by accident. New spell Mind Focus increases wizard production by 50%, cost and difficulty as patriotism. Sorry. Now that's an interesting spell. I mean, it's pretty cool. I think several people have suggested this in the past. Definitely like looking at Dark Elf though, and some of the other combos. If you start adding this mind focus spell, to a Dark Elf fairy or something, your wizard generation is could potentially be off the charts. Something to keep in mind. Again, Dark Elf fairy is would be one of my picks for a TM. I think. But again, it's a very versatile role. It could very well do something else, like be an attacker, because it will be, I think, your support caster as well. All right, dragons, reverted dragon cost mods to previous values, age 40, or sorry, age 89. That should be reminiscent for everybody that's here still. Adjusted dragon HP mods to previous scaling values, sapphire, topaz, amethyst, ruby, emerald. Interesting. Okay, so, again, kind of stays the same there. Did that really change that much, Persian, to your recollection? I mean, I think Emerald always had the most HP.
Sorry, you cut out right when you were asking the other part. Which one?
Did that really change very much there, the Dragon's HP mods?
So the dragon HP mod, your dragon is going to be effectively double what you were the previous age in relation, both in cost and HP. So we're reverting back to the previous type of scaling. Instead of having cheap dragon, easy slay, we're going to have the expensive dragon, hard slay again.
Perfect, perfect. And with science being the way it is, you think that people are going to take more advantage of that heroism science for those easier slays? I guess we see there is some serious lag on this thing right now.
I would.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, and it's something that I always have taken myself. I mean, even in the past, I like to run heavy on military science usually, especially for the core. I mean, econ is pretty important early on too, but nothing beats having that heroism science for, I mean, cheaper military training, or sorry, was it, yeah, cheaper military training or faster military training and cheaper, faster dragon slay as well. That's a great one to have. You kind of have no choice but to heavy invest in heroism now from Phoenix. Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of what we were leaning towards there. So let's move on to the races a little bit here. Let's go down and take a look at our avian. Let's see, move that thing out of the way a little bit. There we go. Perfect. Okay, so avian bonuses. Primary pick, hospital, 50% hospital land effects. I mean, wow, that's pretty awesome. Usually avians die out really fast. That's their problem. So getting that land effect is pretty nice. It also helps you by, not having to put as many hospitals into something to get that return that you're looking for. So again, it's if anyone's confused as to how this is like if how this is making sense, they've outlined it here very nicely and easily. Primary pick, you're going to get 50% hospitals and land effects. If avian is your secondary pick, you're going to get that elite unit gains that +4 and +0 to their strength. Um, so I mean, it's pretty straightforward. That really shouldn't confuse anybody there. I mean, avian looks the same as it normally does. We got a -15% attack time, -25% training time, +30% birth rate. I mean, this kind of looks like standard avian stuff. No access to stables or war horses. I mean, for the fluff sake, that makes sense. I mean, when you have wings, what need do you really have of a horse? I mean, if anything, it would slow you down. Um, so I mean, that's a nice one that makes sense here. Looking at their troops now, offensive, so they got a bit of an offensive boost with 12, defensive of 10, base elite of 11 and 6 at 1500 GC. Cost is pretty high, but I mean that's a pretty nice number there, 11 and 6. Um, do you think that avians are going to be using a lot of prisoners this age or mercenaries? What do you guys think?
I think everybody kind of got a boost to the prisoners, mercenaries, and war horses. I think those will be the standard things you want to use, and it'll be dependent on if your build or your money allows for it.
True. And yeah, I mean, totally. Oh, and you type something as well too there. Okay, cool. Yeah, and Warhorse is NA, so No war horses for you guys. Woo. Okay, Dark Elf, one of my favorite picks all the time. Um, this is a great choice for, I guess, like an attacker mage or just a pure TM. It's great. You get your 50% tower land effects, so you've effectively got, your rune producer here who's going to use very few runes themselves. So they'll always have plenty of runes to aid out. Pretty defensive elites there if you go with them as a secondary pick. I mean, it's primarily defensive. Like this is one of those races that, as you attack, you're converting for defense. So you're mostly just training offense if you're playing like an attacker mage on this guy here. Starts with a nice balance of wizards and thieves. They'll be the ones that you probably do not want to try any ops on when the age starts. Dark elves or anyone that gets a plus to thieves or wizards, they'll probably have just a slight advantage over you unless you're something similar. The only thing that really hurts them is the birth rate. Minus 20%. I mean, that kind of hurts when you're going up and down. Sorry, when you're going up and there is no down, because with the birth rate and peasants filling in a lot slower, as you grow, there's a lot more room for overpopulation. So, I mean, theoretically, you're safer, but in the sense that they're just going to save you to be hollowed out later. So, um, it's definitely one of the, maybe one of the more challenging picks to play this age, as it is most
Yeah,
ages.
both Dark Elf and Fairy are going to be hard to pick as primary picks because while they have the or 7-9 elite or the 6-9 elite, um, you're just not getting the primary cost effectiveness that Elf has with the 12-point D spec. And you're going to be very apt to pick Dark Elf or Fairy as a second pick onto something versus your primary pick. Because even if you were to pick, say, Dark Elf Orc and try and get, an 11-point offensive spec, you're looking at, an 11-9. And while that can work as a hybrid or a tanky or somebody who only kind of snipes easy hits, if you're comparing that to your standard attacker that's even running like 15 or 16, you're just way behind in offense.
Yeah, and let's see. Phoenix also says DE this age are really good for pop control province, which I mean, you see that with the instant spell damage, the wizard production. Um, again, coupled if you can get that mind spell, mind focus, like from a fairy combination, you're just going to be racking up wizards really quickly. Bottom line is the dark elf's going to be passing the majority of their spells to get the rune refund. They're a rune powerhouse. They're going to be supplying all the other TMs, possibly even the core with runes. A lot of benefit to this province. I mean, look at this. Like, if you combine the two spell books, you get a nice healthy combination of offensive spells as well as defense and support spells from the fairy side of it. And again, that mind spell, gives you increased wizard production, and dark elf gives you wizard production. I'm gonna say that a lot. This is a good like race to pick for stuff. I'm not gonna tell you exactly what to do, but you know, don't let Dark Elf fall to the wayside, that's for sure. Let's see, won't be easy to play this age, but if ran right, it will be tough to defeat. Exactly. That's exactly right, Phoenix. That's kind of how Dark Elf has always been, as one of those kind of more hybridy race picks. I more commonly see them again as support casters or someone who's just kind of turtling, leaving the majority, if not all of their elites at home and only sending O specs out. Of course, having them mounted um, has just enough offense, as Persian is saying, to snipe those easy hits on targets that leave low defense home or leave themselves wide open, and you want your turtles to grow out of range or grow to a point where they can have so much defense sitting at home that they can kind of just sit on top and not have to worry too much. Unless an attacker has to suicide or something, then maybe that's part of the plan. So again, it's definitely a tricky one to play, but as Phoenix says, very tough to defeat. And as we saw, I believe a Dark Elf took one of the individual crowns at the end of the age. or came very close to it. So, I mean, it's definitely one of those race picks that might not be great for a first-time player, but I mean, in the Warring Kingdoms, it should definitely be highly considered. Again, like Dark Elf Fairy would be a great combination for an attacker mage, just to give you some hints there. Again, and looking as Persian said, I mean, standing up against Elf, you're not getting that defensive specialist of 12. But I mean, the base 10/10 is still pretty good. I mean, again, you're looking at a turtle-esque province here, so depending on what you combine it with, it could be a really strong province, like a dark elf dwarf, for instance, would be a rune producing machine. All right, so enough of dark elf. Let's move on to the next one. Oh, of course, dwarf, just the one I was talking about. So here, let's get it centered there. Make sure I can see Phoenix's chat. Awesome. All right, dwarf 50% to guard station. Now, if you notice, this is kind of coming in from Genesis a little bit. This primary pick giving the building bonus. That wasn't really something they were doing really before. Um, and it's interesting to see it being incorporated because I kind of did like it in Genesis, and I felt like it gave a little bit more, for like OP-ness to the game, made you feel like your choices were a bit stronger because it gave you a little bit of building flexibility. So you could put that towards offense or defense or econ or production of some kind. So I mean, it's like, kind of cool that some of the Genesis stuff is making it out here. I mean, again, though, Dwarf doesn't really look like it's changed from its usual. Looks like they kind of combined a bit of Artisan in here when they put in this building damage taken from Arson, Greater Arson, Tornadoes, and Raise Attack deduction. Um, Dwarves get cheap buildings, half the raise and build cost, and they get the building efficiency. They do, however, suffer from the food consumption thing. As always, they eat like crazy. No access to sabotage operations, not the biggest issue. Um, there's plenty of other combinations that you could pick for your sabotage operations. Dwarf is probably not the greatest, but I mean it has lots of potential with that building efficiency and the ability to just switch its buildings at lower costs, and again very resistant to raises. So dwarf would be a good core choice this age. Maybe something like a dwarf undead, so you can negate that food penalty. And then you essentially have something that just can't do sabotage operations, but that's perfectly fine for an undead core. You just need some strong thief, rogue type provinces to back you up, and that covers whatever deficit that you'd see on the dwarf side. Dwarf offense and defense are balanced. They've got a bit beefier offense on their elites, which tells me they're not going to be turtling too much or as much this age probably as they have been in previous ages, as they've had more balanced elites. But still, your mounted dwarf is 13 and 6 for their elites. So I mean that's pretty sweet. You know, the dwarf. I think we're going to see a lot of dwarfs this age, or we should see a lot of dwarf attackers this age. Again, that building efficiency is great to stack on something that has some type of production bonus, or a building, another race has some kind of production bonus or something like that. And again, the deduction from raise and arson. I mean, if you think about the implication of those attacks, you're lowering the enemy's net worth, taking out their buildings, making them more vulnerable all around, and they're just resistant to that. So it's just taking one of those, or slightly nerfing one of the tools that TMs would have in their bag to deal with attackers. But again, this is just a 30% deduction. You're still probably going to feel the heat if a team of rogues comes after you, or if a few people raise you. I mean, two raises is certainly going to be adequate enough to make you feel the pain. Because again, you're only getting 30% reduction on that, so it's still, you're still taking like 150% damage from the potential of 200% damage. So I mean, it's not It's not going to be a huge deal, but it's better than nothing. I mean, it certainly will help, especially with the building cost reduction as well. That always hurts when you get raised during a war and it costs you a fortune to to aid down to you. And let's say they already cast explosions on you or something, or on everyone who has gold. Um, that makes it really risky to move that gold around and twice as costly to get those buildings built if it even makes it to you. Um, so, lots of things you can do here. All right, Dwarf, great offensive pick. And again, a great potential production pick for an econ setup as well. Let's look at Elf. All right, Elf, you're on the limelight again. Let's see. Phoenix says that cheap build and raise will allow for faster build changes in war if circumstances change. Yes, that is true, especially if you're low on the econ side. And also allow you to flip your buildings around quicker too. I mean, I think the key takeaway there especially is, let's say the enemy attacks and you build your acres, and before they come back, well, you know what? You just built 20% guard stations before their army can march again. And when they're trying to build their guard stations, it takes like, I don't know, what, 16 hours or something like that. And your army's back before their guard stations come in. That's just a random situation there. But I mean, you can see how getting those buildings in place faster and having them ready faster could benefit you, in between enemy waves, things like that. So primary pick for Elf. Let's see if I'm missing anything here. Okay.
For Elf, it's just your standard. Here's some guilds. Here's a good military. Here's WPA, mana, and meteor showers. You're not getting much beyond that. Else is kind of your standard workhorse that fits in anywhere. You can fit it in as a core, or you can fit it in as a primary pick due to the 12-point D specs, or as a secondary pick just for that added magic mix.
Yeah, and I mean that's again, these plus to buildings. I think it's sweet. Like I think that was a nice addition coming out of Genesis. Gives you a little bit of room to play around with your buildings as well. Kind of adds a bit of a different layer to it as well. Like I think it's nice to see that. So I'm kind of happy to see that. But overall, again, Elf doesn't really look like anything super special. However, I will point out that, in its current state right now, out of protection, when the gates open, it's got 200 wizards. So unless someone Dark Elf, or someone like a fairy is really trying to pump those guilds hard, even again, Elf gets the guild land effects bonus. Um, they're in a good position they could, probably cast a fireball on just about anybody when they leave protection. And if they maintain their province properly, that'll be a tough customer. Like an elf, dark elf, would get some serious wizard production, have that nice WPA gain and the mana recovery. Um, like that. There you go. You know, that's all I have to say. There you go. All right, let's move on to the next one, unless Phoenix has some comments here with regards to Elf. Elf is holding both MS and Pitfalls, makes it almost an essential to add into a War Kingdom. Yes, I mean, exactly. Um, that's exactly what Persian was pointing out there. I think we can all agree that Meteor Showers and Pitfalls are two very essential spells, and just Elf's innate abilities, with the guild bonus effect, I think, and this WPA and the mana recovery. Oh man, it's really tough. It's really tough. I
And
hate to
lower
say it.
rune costs next stage for
Yeah,
the vast majority of people.
yeah, exactly. I hate to say it, but that elf is looking like I want to pick it over Dark Elf, but still, love my Dark Elves. So, I mean, that's the beauty about this new recent change. So, thanks to Persian Cat and team. Um, two races. Woo! All right. We can have best of both worlds now. Now let's move on to everybody's favorite, fairy. Now, I mean, do you think fairies are going to be as powerful this age? Do you think that the kingdom who takes 15 fairies is going to quad crown again?
Yeah, my gut's no on that. The fairy is going to be very useful for lower losses. It has a good elite defense. It has your nice spell book. It's not going to fall behind on Guild Pump due to Mind Focus. It has Mage's Fury. So I mean, it's a good overall around all around Providence, but it's nothing that really jumps out as a must have to me. My difficulty would be I would want to go like natural first pick elf because that's your magic focus, and then I would struggle between what's the advantage between fairy and dark elf. I would be putting a lot of effort into trying to figure out, is nightmare worth it, or is the support spell and the book worth it? And I don't think there's a solid answer there unless you know you're going to be running like a magic based kingdom with eight nightmares and um, a whole bunch of, say, orc undeads, elf undeads, or dwarf undeads, or something where you're just going to be chaining really hard and using nightmare really hard. Then you'd want dark elf. Otherwise, fairy provides you a nice overall thief mage where your loss of thieves when you fail is a nice little bonus there.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean that's a nice again a nice buff for Fairy to have. That kind of reminiscent of heretics there. So to me, that kind of says, hey, I want to be a dark elf or possibly an elf as well. I mean, either of those choices, you can't really go wrong. Um, you're starting with bonus thieves, bonus wizards. Income is really the biggest deficit, but to be honest, is that really a big penalty? I don't think so. I really don't think Fairy's looking pretty sweet, but again, I don't think it's going to be the one that wins you the age by itself. That's for sure, as you said. All right, and as I said, and as we talked about, Fairy DE, Fairy Undead even might be an interesting combo um, for an attacker. So it'd be interesting to see if anyone actually plays something like that. The survey right now, I think Persian was nice enough to screenshot it for me because I'm not actually in the game right now just yet. But it looks like people are really favoring avians, elves, and especially orcs. Orc is a big number of picks on it. Part undead, as we kind of expected, already is about a third of the server is part undead. So, I mean, we have that to look forward to. True-blooded undeads, though, not many of those. Not many of those at all. Nine, in fact, only. So definitely going to be a lot of undeads. Not any pure ones, but I think people are looking for that farm. That not having to worry about farms or food, because I think a lot of people recently have been burned pretty bad by starvation tactics. Let's see. Yeah, sorry, a little segue here, going back to Fairy. Phoenix says that um, it seems more like a support role than prominent attacker. So again, it's going to be your kind of turtley support role. I like to call them clerics or paladins, kind of. Um, I mean, that's not what they're called, but that's effectively what they're doing in most cases. I mean, in any other game, it's kind of what that character would be doing. Um, and again, Fairy Spellbook is Fairy Spellbook. Let's move on to Gnome. I saw a joke earlier. I think someone said like, "Oh, someone accidentally picked true-blooded gnomes." But I mean, come on, you got to give the gnomes some credit. It's a pretty great combination we've got here. I mean, you get a bonus to home's capacity. Let's see. Yeah, okay, it's got it up there. So you get the home capacity as the primary pick. Elites are only 1 for 1. They got kind of soft elites. Not super excited about that portion of it, but that 10% population makes up for it. Sabotage operation damage definitely can make up for it. And this has always been my favorite thing about Gnome, this 50% credits gained in combat. The first thing that I always thought about when I saw that was expropriation. I mean, that just screams like expropriation ritual. when I see something like that. And can train thieves with specialist credits. I mean, win-win. So you get a speed, this age, you get a speed reduction on training thieves, the same as you would specialists or any other military unit. And now, with Gnome, you can train them with specialist credits as well. So it's just one little thing that Gnome can add to its tool bag. Not only is it getting free thieves, but it's going to get them faster as well. Um, Nothing super special about their starting here. They get some specialist credit soldiers to train, 100 thieves, that plus 15% military casualties. Um, that's not super exciting because generally with higher population means more raw troops marching, so it means more deaths inevitably, but you're getting those credits. So maybe Paranome, again, I hate to say this, just Paranome with Undead or something, and that's your easy plays itself kind of combo. You get invisibility and quick feet. I mean that would be a pretty sweet AT right there, with emphasis on the attacker, especially because of the undead component. However, slightly less effective with its plague. Um, you know, s- Sorry, so plague is something a lot of people are going to be kind of upset about this age. I think with so many undeads roaming around, I think that kind of is going to incentivize people to pick something that either gets a hospital bonus or like avian, for instance. But again, there's not going to be too many. I just don't see too many pure blood combos in the warring kingdoms. Definitely in some of the ghettos or some of the smaller kingdoms that don't really plan on warring. I'm sure we'll see all kinds of rainbow stuff, but I just not a combo I really expect to see in the warring kingdoms necessarily. I'm sure someone's going to try it though. Why not? I mean, that's what games are all about, having fun. Again, emphasis on the weak military of the gnome, 9 offense, whereas most people are getting a 10 even all around. But again, base elite 9 to 5 is not terrible given its population boost. Let's take a quick look here. Yeah, okay. Let's move on to halfling. So the original rogue here, halfling, one of my favorite races probably in the game.
And Halfling's another one of those races where primary pick is probably going to be a harder thing to do just because um, the elite having a very lack of defense in your elite with a race that just naturally doesn't want to grow a lot and wants to sit and op. Those are difficult things. I would personally probably couple halfling with either fairy or elf, as elf and fairy being the first pick and halfling with the second pick. Or you could always try and pick halfling with something like orc and try and use it as a chain finisher at where you use your stealth to like prop early, kidnap late, and then most of your hits are kind of well crap gains, but you do have orc gains, and you're going to be kind of slightly bottom feeding. So hopefully you don't get punished too much.
Yeah, and I mean that's one of those ones I think, Atlas would probably love something like this, like a halfling gnome or something that just sits at the bottom with 3 TPA or more, no defense, and I don't know, 100k offense, let's say, and just keeps, bottom feeding and destroying the bottom continuously over and over again. I mean, we've seen that before. So definitely, halfling is going to be one to watch out for. And I think that this age is throwing, I think, some of the more standard combinations into kind of more of an attacker role or hybrid role. So I mean, we're definitely going to see a ton of hybrids alone. I mean, the data alone says that we have the survey alone, sorry, says that we have like 500 um, orcs or sorry, undeads basically. Um, so I mean, there's only 1,400 or 1,500 players already in the game, so we still have about 600 more players to get in. So it'll be interesting to see how that number stacks up there. Just got the 10-minute warning from the Google Meets thing. We are at the 50-minute mark, so let's try and get through as much of this as possible. There isn't too much left to go on the race side of things. We've got our human university land effects. So, I mean, I think maybe that's partly why they nerfed science a little bit. Um, because you're still like humans are getting this nice university buff, although things are capped still, so there's still a limit to everything in the game. Science efficiency, that's nice. 30% reduction on learn attacks, damage taken from amnesia, 50% mercenary costs. I mean, human is a science beast still. This TPA and WPA is going to hurt them though. I mean, they're going to have to put some books in there to offset that. Not too many combinations can help them, um, get past this weakness that they have here to magic and thievery. It'll still be a strong core, but I think, mid to late game, even last stage, I think human took a little bit too long to pay off, but once it did, it really paid off, but still, I think too long of a play for human still. It's definitely a risky play. I'm not saying you can't do it, um, but you have to be really on the ball and have to really like learning and playing the science game to make human work effectively. Again, the results we saw from it last stage, it just took so long, so long. And again, if not played correctly, you're better off just playing something else because that something else could have gotten just as much, if not more, science than you. So definitely humans a good pick, but one to be very cautious of. Human science was insane. Sorry, it was insane last age. Phoenix says, and they're glad that and they're glad that it was nerfed. Um, yeah, I mean, it was too strong last stage. I mean, we saw 500 plus net worth breaker humans who were sitting on not even fully converted elite armies. So, I shared some of my book's numbers, and some other people did as well. I mean, I only went to war once, and I had like plus almost 50% population. That's a scary number when you really think about it. And some of the warring kingdoms at the top had, I think, even more than that. So, factor science in always at end of game when you're thinking of your setups. Orc, another popular pick here, another one of my personal favorites for attacker. Training ground effect. I mean, that's sweet offense. Nice offensive power on your orc here. Combat gains to offset the combat gains that we saw in the last pick up here for halfling, as Persian was saying, would be a nice offset there. Um, again, picked as a secondary, you get a +4 to strength for your elites. That's wicked. I mean, Orc already has such a powerful combination here for their elite attacks. I mean, they're going to be a force to be reckoned with once they start converting for sure, as they always are. No bonuses from honor. I mean, you can work around that, and I mean, Syndicate clearly didn't have a problem. They didn't care about honor last stage, and they ended up in a pretty good top 10 position there. So honor's not the be all and end all, of the world, but definitely something again you want to work into your overall strategy. So again, nothing's really changed with orc there. Let's move to undead. Dungeon capacity. Looks like we're right on track here. Big emphasis here on mercenary and prisoner values. They're worth a lot. Make sure you factor this in when you're looking at, the viability of your unbreakable provinces or potentially unbreakable provinces, because they're swinging a big punch this age, and prisoners for undead are swinging the biggest punch. And with this increased dungeon capacity, maybe release prisoners or free prisoners or whatever that spell that op is that nobody ever uses will see the light of day. And so all these undeads that we have on the server right now may be victims of that, but only time will tell. Again, one of the least used spells in Utopia, but by all means, this age might change that. Again, offensive and defensive values for the offense, or sorry, for the undead is pretty nice here. 11-11, one higher than the base on both sides. Pretty decent base elite unit of 11 to 5. Like an orc undead would be a total beast here. You get the training ground buff, and then you get the elite gains of +4 on top of the orcs already. 12, 16 plus the warhorse, 19 plus a little bit of science, or forget it. Just add your training ground effect on top of that, and you're looking at some pretty scary orcs there once they're fully mounted on elites.
Yep. So now, if you want to look at kind of the total kingdom mix, the easiest thing that most people are going to be looking at is if you run something like 8 elf halflings, 17 orc undeads. That is going to be your standard kingdom mix that everyone is probably going to be basing on, because you have your meteor showers and your attack wizards and propaganda, plus your beefy, hard hitting attackers. Um, Not to say that a whole bunch of the other combinations aren't valid. I personally think that both dwarf and avian can compete with orc, and if you have the coordination and the effort, something like an elf undead kingdom, if you can generate the runes, would could just be devastating, because you would have an insane amount of mana. But then beyond the standard kind of elf halfling, if you mix in either elf fairy or elf, dark elf, or even something like a dark elf, um, gnome, or dark elf, halfling. Any of these mixes starts being viable kind of as a standard thief mage. They're just to what extent you're going to use them. If you're going to be using dark elf, you're definitely going to be wanting using the nightmare, and if you're using gnome, you're definitely going to want to have somebody in the kingdom who can greater arson watchtowers, so you can really use the sabotage damage. If you're trying to mix in human, or trying to mix in you know, just like something like a undead fairy, all of these kind of combinations start going in and start pulling away. The more hybrids that you pull in, the less thief mages you need, but your standard is still going to be that I have meteor showers, I have attack wizards, and I have the ability to hit really hard. And then figuring out what you want to pull for support spells or pull for nightmare capability is going to kind of determine the mix that your kingdom is able to do.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, it's going back to that standard of Utopia. I mean, new players and people who are just learning should start to see the pattern here. I mean, we'll talk about it more and more as the age goes on and continuously as ages go on. Just in hopes that everyone will learn a little bit more and hopefully bring more players to the game because they find it exciting. Um, Orc Undead, as Phoenix is saying, is going to be a top choice for core attacker this age. And as we saw in the survey, it looks like we're already heading in that direction. And it's also, one of the easiest provinces to play as well. Just massive offense from the start to finish. The only downside there is like the honor loss. But again, if you don't really care about that or your strategy works around that, that's really nothing to be concerned about because that buff you get from not having to have farms is fantastic. Um, yeah, here you go. Orc Undead is easiest and one of the strongest hitters. No honor, lots of sustain, no food. Attackers never care about honor. Advantage is too fast anyway. That's a great point because attackers should be used to going up and down by now. I've seen in the past where turtley attackers have kind of tanked their way up to the top and then sat on a bunch of honor only to lose it all close to the end of the war anyway. And, they're hit really hard by something like that. Um, yeah, so definitely something to watch out for. It looks like we're running out of time here on this Google Meets. Do you have anything specific you want to mention, Persian?
Oh, I got it out. I'm good.
Perfect, perfect. All right, so thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Unfortunately, Smiles couldn't make it tonight. He is having too good of a time celebrating our Labor Day here in Canada. It looks like the call is about to end. So thank you so much, Persian Cat, for joining me tonight, and everyone else who couldn't make it. Thank you so much, Phoenix, as always. And again, a lot of top kingdoms are recruiting everyone, so make sure you get to it. Thanks so much for joining me, everyone. We'll see you in the chat. So that says goodbye to our special guests. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining us for tonight. We did take this up to about an hour. We did postpone it in hopes that we could get Smiles in here, but unfortunately, as I said, he was having too much fun partying, and we don't want to take that away from him. It's his holiday too. So I hope to see everybody out there on the battlefield. I will likely be doing something this age. I'm not 100% sure yet. As I said, I haven't even created a province yet. So I'm not even sure exactly what I'm going to be doing. Let's look at some of the comments here on the YouTube thing here. To be fair, if they had made Katie wall free and not 20% wages. We wouldn't need to raise kill anyone. Looks like this is Scraz. And we do teach new players. Just we select two. Um, I mean, yeah, sorry, Valor for Dragon Slaying. Thank you so much for correcting me on that one. Yes, it's Valor Science, not Heroism. The military is only affected by first pick, so Undead won't get the 8 prisoners unless it is first pick. Thank you so much, Sean, for pointing that out. And yes, it is Valor Science and Heroism Science. Either way, both of those are extremely important. I feel like, getting that draft and military training reduction, of course, along with the dragon slaying is really important. And dragons will be much harder to slay and fund this age. So dragon changes should mix it up a little bit. Um, it's interesting. Looks like that room is still actually open and talking on my screen here. But actually, it's because I'm not live. Oh, perfect. Okay. So, yeah, thanks everyone for joining tonight. There will be some more stuff coming up in the future. I will be tracking all the wars, at least the war wins and wars between all the kingdoms. So, you can look for that in the newsroom channel. There will also be some live interviews available for anyone who reaches out to me before I start the official podcast later in the age, focusing on the high level wars between kingdoms who are vying for those top 10, top even 25 positions on the charts. Crowns will be posted shortly. I have a new plan for Crowns this age. We're going to recognize more people than usual. Make sure we recognize all the individual crowns as well as the kingdom crowns. So definitely something to look forward to in the future. There will also be some other special things that I'm working on, like end of age stuff for 92. And I will be taking a little bit of extra time to work on that. Part of the reason I'm not jumping into the game right away, you'll probably see me on the battlefield probably at some point later in the age. I just want to get a feel for what war looks like with these some of these changes. So I'll very well likely jump in for maybe 1 or 2 wars and then go back to some ghetto growth kingdom or something like that, or just random into somebody else's kingdom and start taking intel randomly around the server. Who knows? Plans are up in the air right now. HD already tried to buy me for this age. His running bid was $50 USD, which I didn't accept. Although I think he was probably good for his word. So in hindsight, I think I lost $50 there. But anyway, thanks so much everyone for listening, and hope we have a great age. Definitely more podcasts to come in the future. If you have any plans or you wanted to do an interview or anything like that, again, reach out to me. I appreciate all the data and in-game stuff everyone sent me last stage. It was a lot harder than I expected to sort through, simply due to the time that I had. So again, thank you everyone for joining me tonight. And I hope everyone is looking forward to a great age start. Thank you so much, everyone, and have a great night.